Okay. We move on then to our next briefing, which is from Parenting NI. The clerk's cover note is at page 350, and you'll see then the relevant papers then after that. We're going to welcome witnesses. We have Clare Magee, who's the Director for Parenting Forum, Parenting NI, and Nicola McKeown, who is Participation Worker for Parenting Forum, Parenting NI. You're very welcome. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. And you were in the gallery, so you were able to maybe anticipate some of the questions.
I don't know whether that was helpful for us.
More nerve-wracking. You might be able to anticipate some of the questions which will be coming along. But if you'd like to make your opening statement, and then we'll follow up with some questions.
First of all, can I thank you for having us here today. Parenting and I are very honoured to have been working with parents for the last 35 years, and 15 years of that we've been consulting with parents on a wide range of issues. As the Chair had already indicated, my name is Clare Magee. I'm the Director of the Parenting Forum. For the last 17 years I've been working with parents, children and young people in the voluntary community sector. My colleague Nicola McKeown is a participation worker, but is a former primary school teacher and also a former cross-community facilitator at Carmela, so she had quite a lot of experience in the issues of shared and integrated education. We're here today to present on two reports, two consultations that we've carried out with parents on the issues of shared and integrated education. The first consultation was carried out with focus groups in 2012 on behalf of the Ministerial Advisory Group, as Ms Lucy Mooney already referred to earlier. It focused specifically on shared education. The second is one that we carried out very recently in September, October of this year, and it was an online consultation that we carried out with a wide range of parents. To give you a bit of background on Parenting NI and our forum work, we're the lead voluntary organisation providing support to parents across Northern Ireland on a wide range of parenting issues. Our four key areas of work include the helpline, our parenting programmes, parents counselling service and our forum. And the work of the forum itself is to work with parents to improve outcomes for children and young people and aims to influence policy and practice on parenting issues. We provide consultation with parents and have done for the last 15 years, and we have over 1,800 individual parents and family support organisations as members of our forum right across Northern Ireland. In October 2012, we were commissioned to carry out consultations with parents on behalf of the QUB Ministerial Advisory Group on Shared Education. We worked with 6 focus groups of parents across Northern Ireland made up of around 55 parents. These included groups of parents representing the views of primary school, post-primary, early years settings and alternative education programmes. The purpose of this consultation was to provide a platform for parents to air their views on shared education and how best to move forward based on the questions provided by the Ministerial Advisory Group. Some general points on this consultation. Most parents said their children had had experience of shared education through, for example, extended or after schools programmes, sports teams, school twinning and joint classes for studying some subjects. But a lot of parents didn't actually know what shared education was until other parents in the room started to discuss it and had examples of it. They did, however, feel that shared education was a positive experience and had great benefits for their children. The majority of parents we spoke to in this consultation were in favour of advancing shared education in any way, shape or form. I just want to point out a little proviso with this consultation. Some parents did feel, and it was raised in a lot of the focus groups, that this consultation was somewhat disguised as a discussion on shared education when they felt it was actually more of a discussion on Northern Ireland's education system in general and an attempt to move away from grammar schools towards a comprehensive type school system providing all ability education in one setting. One group of parents felt this so strongly that they actually withdrew from the consultation process before we begun, feeling that it was an attack on grammar schools. So just to give you an idea that parents, when it comes to the likes of the education system, they had a lot of viewpoints, and some of the focus groups did go off on tangents here and there, and we had to pull them back quite a bit. But for those who did take part, some important feedback was gained. Based on this inquiry's terms of reference, I've pulled out some of the following points from the 2012 report. In relation to definition, parents initially expressed confusion about the term, stating that shared education was a bit more confused with integrated education, and as I said, it only became clear when examples started to be given of what that actually was. Shared education within this consultation focused a lot on mixing not just on a religious basis, but on mixed abilities and gender as well. This highlighted the need in this report certainly for a definition to be a bit clearer. Some of the key barriers to advancing shared education as raised by parents in this report were around the location of schools. One parent commented that having a joint shared education programme with a middle with another school which was in the middle of a one-sided housing estate, as they put it. It wasn't always a welcoming environment for young children particularly. They also discussed the geographical spread of schools, particularly in rural areas, as a major barrier, making transport quite difficult. This also increased the costs and increased on travel time, which then impacted on timetabling for shared classes. Parents also felt that general attitudes within Northern Irish society to cross-community work and this them and us mentality needed to be addressed in order to advance shared education. They felt that there was fear amongst some schools, some parents and some communities, and therefore shared education couldn't be reinforced outside of the school environment, which is actually what is needed. Parents also felt that shared education won't meet the needs of all children. For example, in one particular group, we had a few parents who had children with complex disabilities, and they felt that their physical and emotional needs had to supersede anything else. Parents did identify some alternative approaches, ranging from good practice initiatives, from short-term project-focused initiatives with school twinning, to cluster group exercises amongst 3 or more schools in a particular area, which they felt was very beneficial. Some of those cluster group exercises focused particularly on working with parents and involving parents in those processes of shared education and informing parents about the messages of what shared education was actually trying to achieve and how they could help at home. The priorities and actions to improve sharing in education, parents identified as an early intervention approach that's needed to start from a very early years, needed to start from nursery level. They needed shared education to have a clear definition and purpose. They wanted more opportunities for participation, including participation of parents in this. They wanted to address the issues of symbols and religion rather than ignoring it, because they felt that if it took place in a safe space with trained facilitators, it could be discussed more openly and people would have a better understanding of it. Some parents did look at the need for changing the correct parts of the curriculum and hoping that the curriculum could focus more on citizenship, social education, respect and difference. There was a very mixed response, and again my colleague will talk a little bit about the 2014 survey that we carried out. There was a mixed response about where religious education fitted in this and whether to change to a world religion or to remove religious education in schools altogether. They also discussed that on certain subjects like history, they should be able to be encouraged that their children are being taught from both sides of the story. Parents identified another priority in action was to increase funding and to monitor to improve accountability, so that if schools are being paid money to participate in shared education initiatives, that they are quality education initiatives and actually making a real difference. They wanted to raise awareness of shared education and promote in schools and with teachers and with parents, and again to encourage parental participation at all levels in order to reinforce the key messages. I'll hand over to Nicola, who will discuss a little bit about the 2014 report that we completed.
So in response to the consultation carried out in 2012, the Parenting Forum wanted to gain a more up-to-date information and views from parents in relation to the issues of shared and especially integrated education. Our experience has been that parents welcomed their input on these issues. We decided to go with an online survey using a consultation tool, using questions based on the committee's terms of reference. This survey has an advantage of gaining a wider response from parents across Northern Ireland in a very short period of time. We had a very quick turnaround. The survey was initiated towards the end of September and closed 2 weeks later in early October. Publicity to promote the survey was generated via our Parenting NI social media networks such as Facebook and Twitter, as well as through our professional networks, for example the Education and Library Boards. Our Parenting Forum database, which Clare has already mentioned, has over 1,800 members of individual parents and organisations, as well as sending it out through newsletters and our Parenting Forum e-brief. So it's distributed far and wide across Northern Ireland. In total, 1,297 parents viewed the survey. 502 parents completed some of the questions, but not all, and 209 parents completed all of our questions. So some of the key findings that we gleaned from the survey. In response to the committee's the nature and definition of shared and integrated education. Parents' responses varied again, as in the 2012. Still, some parents had not heard or were not familiar with the term shared education, and some even commenting, a small minority commented that they didn't know there was a difference between shared and integrated education. But the majority of parents responding said that their understanding of shared education was about bringing pupils from Catholic and Protestant schools together to share in resources, to share classes and to share facilities, with some mentioning that it should be more than just sharing from Protestant and Catholic schools, but it could be twinned from two Protestant schools together. However, parents responded that they seemed to have a clearer understanding that integrated education meant one school roof where pupils from all religious backgrounds were educated together, and the words tolerance and respect of differences were being promoted and taught. We asked parents, just out of interest, those who had completed the survey, how many of them had children or a child currently attending an integrated school or preschool, and 65% of respondents said yes, they did. We then went on to ask, would parents consider sending their child to an integrated school, and again 61% of the parents responding said yes, they would. In response to key barriers to shared education, parents identified that sharing classes does not necessarily mean that pupils are mixing together or building relationship. Parents commented that this needs to be nurtured by staff, but also realise that parents need to be involved in that as well. It's one thing parents presenting their views to children and then them coming to school to be told something else. Some parents thought that shared education is a diversion from schools being fully integrated, that it was part of the process towards full integration, which many of the parents would actually prefer. And again, practical arrangements of timetabling and transport to other schools could become problematic, along with the size of classes and the appropriate facilities. Parents also mentioned that a barrier could be that differences, for some, they wanted differences to be talked about. For some parents, they thought that differences being highlighted was not always a good thing if it wasn't handled or managed by staff appropriately. Parents identified the following as key barriers to integrated education: that currently there are a limited number of pupil places available, and that the geography of current integrated schools was not always close, especially maybe to those parents who live rurally. For some parents, there was a perception that academic standards can be lower or are lower in an integrated school due to accepting pupils of all abilities rather than the higher academic standards in grammar school. There seems to be that misconception across the viewpoint of parents in Northern Ireland. However, parents responded that these enablers to shared education are that sharing education is a step in the right direction to living a shared future in Northern Ireland. It encourages communities to work together, so they wanted all stakeholders, from community groups, community representatives, parents, to be involved in education, in teaching children, and also for communities to learn to respect and learn from one another. They also liked the fact that in shared education that the individual school ethos and identity that they had chosen for their child was still being retained and wasn't merged into an integrated status where there was one ethos. Key enablers parents identified to integrated education included children being integrated from an early age, which is how parents see Northern Ireland's working its way forward, because barriers then, or perceived barriers, are broken down much earlier, reducing the fear of the perceived other, which can sometimes happen. Parents mentioned that integrated schools are inclusive of children from all traditions and backgrounds. And the majority of parents highlighted the building of relationships in a shared society and learning about other cultures as being very positive. 60% of parents responding to the survey had said that their child had taken part in cross-community programmes, either in their school or in their local community. But 19% of parents said that they were not aware of what their children had participated in. Some examples of good practice range from taking part in sporting activities to cultural events organised by local councils. Parents said that they were not always involved in these programmes, but that they would like to be involved, and that there was no consistency of information given out by schools about what was happening. Moving forward, parents considered the following as priorities and actions that would improve sharing and integration. That parental involvement is highlighted as being important for parents to be included in some of the shared programmes where appropriate, and for more information to be made available to them via schools. Also, parents want to be better informed to make better choices for their children, and they want to be engaged on these issues of what is happening in Northern Ireland on shared and integrated education. Again, some parents said that religious education or religious background should not be the central issue to sharing education, but that actually providing good quality education for all pupils is the key to moving forward. There was also a need from parents that shared education needs to be defined as to its purpose and its benefits. Parents also thought that more agreement and more teaching and more learning for pupils on cultural identity, and an agreement on flags and emblems, whether these are to be removed in schools, or some parents saw that as an opportunity to open up discussion which would help improve relationships. They also wanted more teaching on respect and tolerance and how that could be promoted. More places being available in integrated schools, and better use of funding, whether that's in shared education or integrated education. And finally, parents also said that they would like to see an agreement and commitment from the Northern Ireland Assembly to integrating or sharing schools by a certain date.
Okay. Both reports in 2012 and 2014 don't claim to be reflective of the views of all parents in Northern Ireland. They are just there as a snapshot of some of the views that we've collected. As Nicola said, some of the grey areas are still around the definition, and what parents have quite clearly said in both consultations was around the importance for parents to be involved in this process. The fact that in the recent consultation that Nicola carried out, 19% of parents weren't sure if their children had actually been involved in shared education initiatives is astounding to me. Where's the communication with the school there? So that's something that parents really wanted to have us promote. The parents appreciated being involved in this, in both these consultations, and they're very keen to hear any feedback this inquiry will be able to provide on shared and integrated education moving forward. And thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come today.
Okay, thank you very much. And I suppose really, I mean, you have covered the concerns which I had when I look at the limited number of respondents that you did have, and how it's very much weighted even towards integrated, because obviously they have an experience of sharing in the format within which they work. And it has come across very clearly that there is an issue around definition. When you would normally carry out this type of engagement with parents, would you find that there would be a barrier for you around certain topics, or is it usually quite straightforward to have a conversation with parents, or is education a particularly difficult one? We find it quite easy to approach any subject with parents. I suppose the difference and the issue is around what the issue actually is, how sensitive the issue is, and whether or not we use a group of parents that we have worked with in the past, or their existing group of parents. So if they're a parents group attached to a school, for example, that we know they've got relationships there and they've got support there, once we've gone and stepped out of the room, that there is actually somebody there supporting that. Whereas if it's a particularly sensitive issue, do we just open it up to general parents? It makes it quite difficult for us to follow up the support and to ensure that parents have been supported through the whole process of it. We haven't discovered too many issues with getting parents
involved in discussions around education. They're actually really keen to get involved in discussions in education. We're actually working with some voluntary and community groups at the moment, as well as representatives from education and library boards and the Education and Training Inspectorate, to look at how parental participation in schools and in education in general can be moved forward, because really we want, and parents want, to be involved in their children's education. We know that education doesn't stop at the school gates. Parents want to have those messages reinforced, but there is a lack of communication between schools and parents. So we are trying to encourage and trying to work with the departments on how, and the education library boards, on how we can push that forward.
Okay, so there really isn't a clear mechanism for you to have outreach to parents?
We have our membership forums. Say we've over 1,800 individual members and organisations attached to that. We have a lot of, depends I suppose on the issue as well. We can call on parents from our forum to come and participate in consultations. The online exercise is something we've only recently started to explore, and we've actually found that we're getting contact with more parents through the online surveys. And for example, that recent consultation, we were able to find out that parents are actually on their laptops or on their smartphones at 9 o'clock at night filling out these questionnaires because they're interested in doing it. You know, I wouldn't necessarily be interested in sitting at home at night at 9 o'clock on my smartphone answering a questionnaire, but parents feel so passionate about the subject of education that they want to do that, they want to contribute to that. So we have a broad range of methods of encouraging parents to participate and to consult on, whether it be a focus group method or an online consultation. Sometimes we work through other community and voluntary organisations who are better placed to carry out those particular consultations. We just bring a facilitator in, and they've got a ready-made group of parents, say for example parents with children who have disabilities. We would have connections to different community and voluntary groups who work with those parents, and we can come in and support the consultation delivery with their group.
You commented there were parents who exited the process because they felt that there was possible, it was leading to perhaps the erosion of grammar schools and so on, and then there were those who actually did participate who felt that this was a diversion away from integrated. I mean, clearly, if we have an obvious definition of what sharing is, that perhaps that might then break that down, and try to dispel some of those concerns. But coming out of the work which you have done, is there a recommendation that you could bring to the committee as to how that we can better engage with parents moving forward?
I think what Clare said about schools being better engaged, we have some very good practice of schools engaging very clearly with parents, involving them in. Parents are very positive on the whole about shared education, whether that is integrated or sharing activities. No one said that they did not want their child to participate, although I'm sure there are. If we had asked every single parent in Northern Ireland, you would maybe get a broader range of views. But information from schools, I think, is key to that. So where parents are involved in schools and where schools are building relationships with parents, there are some schools who are very good at that, and inviting parents along to showcase events or being part of those shared education programmes. But there are still some schools who are not engaging with parents and are not making that information available. And parents are saying they want to be involved. They want to know. No one is saying they have an objection to that, but if schools are their first port of call, that's how they want to find out about what's going on. They don't have time to sit down maybe, or are interested in looking at the Northern Ireland Assembly website or other ways, but certainly through school, to me, seems to be the key to where you will get all parents.
One thing that we have been working on, as I said, we are trying to work on promoting parental engagement in education in a wide variety of ways. But one thing that we've looked into quite a lot is around parent councils in schools. And I know Miss Lucy Mooney had talked about school councils with children from each age group, which is fantastic. But again, it's trying to acknowledge that parents are actually involved in their children's education. They are the primary educators of their children from the children are born. So it's trying to get parents involved in the education system as well. And one of the ways that we've looked at, and we've researched quite a lot on that, is around the development of parent councils for schools. We have recently signed up to the European Parents Association, and one of their key, in fact their only key issue, is to look at engaging parents in their children's education. So we're just starting that process of exploring how best parents can do that and how best schools can do that as well.
And I think that's something which is which is useful and should be explored. But I mean, there are difficulties in getting parents involved in PTAs. I know of schools that are finding it very difficult to get parent reps onto their boards of governors.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's laudable, and I think it would be useful to have. But I think there is a challenge there, and we need to look at what the barriers are for parents' participation.
And we have looked at other models. We have been working with the Parents' Council in Dublin, and they have had no problems getting a great number of parents on board. Again, it's the relationships that are built within schools. We do understand that parents are very busy people and they don't always have time, but you will always get, as a former teacher, I used to get very frustrated that I would send notes home in school bags and they would still be there a week later. And we would talk a lot about in schools, parents are just not interested. They're not, those hard to reach parents. It's how schools engage with those parents and how the relationships. There are no parents who are hard to reach. They may be disinterested, but it's then again, it's about schools, I think, seeing themselves as being part of the community and not just it's them and us.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCausland?
Yeah, thank you. Just picking up on the Chair's point there, I was just trying to understand maybe what the reasons would be that when the survey was done there, you had 2/3 of the parents had children attending an integrated school, whereas it would obviously, that's not reflective of the wider community. Why do you think it was that you got such an unrepresentative, if we use that word, response?
It's interesting because we didn't target parents who had children with integrated and children involved in integrated education. We put it through all of our community and voluntary group networks. All of the parents that we knew of in our database, schools, a wide variety of schools were contacted, and they passed it on to their parents. It's obviously, it seems to be quite an emotive issue for parents who are currently involved in integrated or shared education initiatives, and that's why they felt so passionate to get involved in it. It's not a true reflection of the numbers in integrated education in Northern Ireland, certainly not. But there's obviously something there, there's obviously some passion that's been ignited there, and parents do feel very strongly about that for those parents who do have children involved in that sector.
The 2 points that struck me then were, I mean, the issues that they raised are perfectly legitimate issues, and they're issues that other people may well raise. Their conclusions may be different, but the issues will probably be the same. But I just trying to get some understanding. How many people would have been reached potentially by the survey?
Well, it's hard to capture that, I suppose, because we did it mainly through social media and our forum. We can guarantee that 1,800 individual parents and family organisations got it through our forum. With regards to social media, the reach could have been anything up to about 10,000. But we wouldn't have exact figures on that.
And yet, the number that actually responded was hugely influenced by or representative of the integrated sector. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you very much for your insight. I suppose in terms of the definition of shared education, do you believe there should be a stronger emphasis on the whole idea of promoting good relations, the tolerance and respect, mutual understanding?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think parents would certainly like to see the definition with a clear definition with a purpose and set outcomes and targets and milestones to achieve those. I suppose it comes down to the quality of shared education. What we actually mean by shared education is a joint trip to the cinema, actually. A good quality project? No, it's probably not actually, because it is about building relationships and developing that tolerance and respecting that difference and trying to actually move things forward a little bit. So I suppose from a parent's point of view, to have a definition that says, look, this is what shared education is, this is what the initiative your child is involved in, this is how you can help promote the messages we're trying to get. That's what parents are looking for.
And I think parents just want to be informed about what's going on instead of a note. I have seen, and parents have commented, a note goes home in the school bag, your school is joining up with the school down the road for a trip next week. That's not cutting it for parents anymore. They want to know, well, why? Just the same as pupils want to know, why are we joining with that school? Parents are interested. They're not against it, largely, but they want to know what's going on and what is the purpose behind, and what are the benefits to sharing in education.
You also mentioned there about we need to have more schools involved in real sharing of education. Do you believe a shared education premium would be a help in facilitating that?
with regards to sort of a funding.
In terms of their funding, right?
Parents did say that, certainly in the 2012 report, that they would prefer there was some sort of accountability and maybe closer monitoring of schools who were receiving funding for shared education initiatives, because again, some schools were taking it just as the joint trip and other schools were doing a lot more work on it. But they didn't comment specifically. They weren't asked specifically on a question like that, so I couldn't give an honest.
And it's the same in the 2014, parents commented exactly the same as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hazard.
Thanks very much, Chair, and apologies I missed the very start of your presentation, but I just want to know a couple of things. Did you provide a definition of shared and integrated education to the adults who were filling in the survey?
We toyed with the idea of providing. There was a lot of discussion around, is there a definition? Could we find a definition? And once we discussed it, we decided actually, for the benefit of this, let's not go with any definition, because we weren't clear ourselves where that definition was coming from. So we didn't want to spoil. Sometimes providing things to parents can then spoil the results by giving them ideas. So we wanted them just to come up with what did they understand by those terms. So that's why there was a wide variety of responses. Whereas they seem to be clear. I don't know whether that's the integrated sector has been around a lot longer, so there has been more talk, but they were very similar.
You did go on, though, to ask them very specific questions about what were the advantages and disadvantages of shared education. Don't you think it's slightly unfair to ask a parent who maybe doesn't know what shared education is, what's the advantages and disadvantages of shared education? Well,
we wanted to also see what their understanding first of all was, but as I said, we weren't sure ourselves of where that shared definition was coming from, so we didn't then want to approach with saying we've pulled it from this, but it may not be correct.
Yeah. And also we've got the raw data here as well that we can certainly share with the committee too, because we thought maybe by not giving it an initial definition of it might actually help you to get a definition that you might be. Might encourage some discussion. For
I can't help but think, though, that without a definition, and then when you go on to ask very specific questions around it, you could have even given examples of what shared and educating was, so people, again, asked about advantage and disadvantage, could have used the example given or toyed with. That's why I'm not surprised then to find there's such confusion among parents.
And that's one of the difficulties of doing the online consultation, I have to say, because in the 2012 work, the focus groups, when parents didn't know what shared education was, other parents started giving examples, and then it was, oh yes, and that's actually the benefit of having focus groups, because parents can then bounce ideas off each other. The difficulty with the online consultation is that they don't have that mechanism to do it, so yes, it is a flaw in that. But one of the issues that we did have with this particular, with this consultation, again, was the number of questions allowed per consultation. So it was trying to get, and it was already a detailed consultation survey, because when we did it ourselves and we have a bit of knowledge on the subject, it was taking us 15 minutes to complete it, so to take a parent and to have to read through it all and go, it was going to take a little bit longer, so we are aware of that, but it wasn't.
You mentioned the issue about a particular parent group, I think it was about the grammar issue. Can you expand on that? Is it one particular person, or was it a group of parents that responding to it dropped out because they felt, I take it they felt shared education was about comprehensivising the education system? Again, I can't help but think if a definition of shared education had been given at the outset.
Well, no, this one was with the 2012. That was particularly in the 2012 where there was a definition given of shared education based on the Ministerial Advisory Group's definition of it. But even with that, they did feel that we were trying, as you say, comprehensivise the education system. So that was. But
I think as well in the 2014 recent report that there's still that perception that standards are lower in integrated schools, and I think parents just want to be informed about the benefits. So they were saying that around, would you consider sending your child to, say, an integrated school? Some of them were saying, well, actually no, because a grammar education is better. So there's.
Despite the fact that 2/3 of the respondents were from integrated schools, there was still a perception that the standards in integrated schools weren't as good?
By some.
How many?
It could be between 10 and 20 respondents.
It's we're numbers here. I couldn't help but say I'd seen the 2012. it's a survey based on 50 people, and only one. That's why I wouldn't even read too much into 2012 whatsoever, because of the lack of the numbers in it. But just finally, Chair, on the comment made about religion, and that I think it was most respondents felt that religion should be catered for outside of the school. Again, I can't get away from the fact that 2/3 of the respondents were integrated. But again, integrated education deals with religion inside of the school. Sure, everything, there's not once in any of our education systems is there voices about leaving religion. Where does this come from? How many people was this? Or
I think, just to pick up on that, Nicola, sorry, before you do, I think one of the issues is that even though you send your child to an integrated school, are parents fully aware of what that actually involves? And I'm not saying parents make that decision lightly, but do they actually involve, do they know to ask that question? For some parents, the perception is when they go to integrated school, it's a completely neutral venue, they don't do anything like that. And for other parents, they have a bit more information, they know a bit more about what's actually entailed in it. The religious education certainly, I think, has gained mixed responses from parents, even though the parents who do send their children to integrated schools, they do sometimes, some of the parents did feel that, well, religion shouldn't be taught in that school at all, or some parents felt, well, actually, it should be taught, it should be addressed, that there are different religions and it shouldn't just be ignored. And I think that's where the numbers were mixed, because even though the parents did send their child to an integrated education school, their views are still different.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, on a whole, looking at this, the real, I suppose, analysis or answer out of this is the sort of confusion around the definition of shared and integrated. But taking that this survey and it didn't provide a definition, I think it is, I don't know how much we can read into the findings other than the fact that there's no clear blue water around definitions. You know, it's a missed opportunity.
Well, if not, I mean, we did this just to try and get a bit of a snapshot, to be honest with you. It wasn't meant to be a sort of heavily researched social scientist type of a piece of work. But even just the fact of, if nothing else comes out of what we have done, if it is just to say, well, there needs to be a clear definition, and that if that's the key finding that we can provide for you today, then that's the key finding.
And the parents are interested.
And the parents want to be involved in it.
Yeah. Again, I noticed there was only 6 parents from the Fermanagh area, perhaps our area of strongest shared education examples. I wonder would we've got different feedback there too, but it's just a thought. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank Ms McKeown and Ms Magee for coming to the committee. Forgive me if I missed it, but when you were doing your summary of the findings, on page 4 of your 2014 report, under the area ways forward to improve shared stroke integrated education, you'd made reference to the parents suggested that all teacher training degrees should be joint. How strong was that feeling within the parents?
Check, I'm not sure the raw data on that one is.
I don't have numbers exactly, because a lot of the questions, it was a matter of sitting down and counting how many responses. But there was a strong feeling from parents that if we are to move forward and we're encouraging children to share, therefore it should come at all levels of society, and that teachers should be modelling this as well as parents modelling this as well. There was a small grouping of parents who were in favour of having a joint campus. It wasn't something that was specifically asked, but parents did make reference to it.
We could go back and have a look at that
and count them and send it to you
for you, if that's helpful.
No, that's it. You'd used the word you felt it was strong, but in the report it says suggested, as opposed to any strength behind the proposal. It's obviously it's outside. It's more in the Dale area than in the education area. But yeah, I'd be interested just to know.
I'll get back to you on that one. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. No one else has indicated. Can I thank you for your time this morning and for the work that you put into this? I think it's been very useful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.